All right,
Okay,
go ahead.
so
Sorry.
welcome to our Friday session of Color Theory. We're going to be reviewing the projects, the rest of the projects that were submitted. And so here we're starting, can you scroll back just a little, please? Amanda's mom. Overall, there's quite a bit of detail and composition that you've put together. I like the detail in the shirt in particular. I would think I would just like you to continue to refine a couple areas, just a little bit smoothness in the line. Some of them just feel a little jaggedy, even though they're wavy, they're just not quite as crisp as they could be. I think in particular, like some of the lines in the glasses feel like they're more like straight lines where they should be like curves. The bottom rim, especially on the left side. So, and then I don't think that because of the shirts has that star design, and the stars are much more free shaping, showing perspective. Putting stars in the background that have no perspective to them kind of brings some discontinuity to the overall design. So I would, if you want those stars in the background, I would add some of the stars that have that kind of, movement of perspective to them. And then with the part of the hair that's white, doesn't, obviously the Gestalt psychology or mind can fill in the gaps, but it's kind of a big space for the mind to fill in. And it feels a little too egg-shaped. Whereas like hair would have some flow to it and some, you know what I'm saying? So I would just refine that a little bit so that we can see some of that detail. And, just like the nose, just make the nose a little bit more rounded. It's a really good start. So just some minor changes there. Peter, you want to add anything?
No, I agree with all that. Okay. It'd be fun to put the stars in perspective. I think that would help a lot.
All right. So.
Samuel did Tim Burton.
So this looks like a marker sketch right now. I'm not sure if you've done anything in Illustrator yet, but just remember that you're going for four colors, and you're starting with black, white, and 2 shades of gray. Ideally, you'd have like a light gray and a dark gray to get the total tonal range. So there's just not enough here, and then the background hasn't really been thought out fully because everything's kind of cropped and just cut off. So more detail, and go back and refine it so that we can see all of the tonal range.
Yeah, think about your composition and how this is going to work on a shirt. So sort of freestanding would be better. I don't enjoy sketching with a pencil at all. All right, so still a work in progress. All right, Jacqueline, Frida Kahlo.
This is great. I love the way that you've rendered the flowers and the hair. And just it's a very classic, serious look. I'm wondering if there's too much white in the face, if maybe you could add some more of the mid-tone grays in there. Because you really don't have any of the dark gray or the light gray too much in the face. So you could, particularly like, you see like the bottom half of the faces in, dark shadow, what would be, transitioning up to that. And then maybe you could also come in and add a couple more highlights in the hair, obviously because the roses would have that effect. Is that eventually going to be like?
There's the Mexican flag. Yeah, the Mexican flag. So it's got a sort of shepherd fairy look.
The only thing though is she really did have a unibrow.
Yeah, so complete that.
Yeah, I think that would be more apropos. Anything else you want to add, Peter?
No, I love the flowers. So the flowers don't have like extreme detail. They're just sort of like indications that you know exactly what they are. This is really well done. I like it. All All right.
There's
So
a couple, I think there might have been another one after. Can you scroll down a little bit more? Yeah, oh, okay, we did that one. Okay, so that one's done with my section, that section.
all right, let's do your other section. Let's see. Section 4.
Yes.
Thomas.
Okay. So, so here we have Gene Wilder. So we would just really recommend, you know, rather than picking an icon from a movie and tying it to the movie, like, you know, picking something of, you know, the character himself, like what, you know, because he was more than just the one film. So I think the pose is just a little too classic in terms of, you know, a connotation to that particular film. I can see that you're starting to get some of the shadow in the face, but I'm not really quite sure with all the, you know, light line work, where all of that is going. Also, just know that when you use the pen tool, you can stack objects on top of each other. You don't have to path fit every single thing. You don't have to go back over your lines. So, you know, that face itself could be drawn in more of an oval shape, and then the hair just sits on top. Because I can see some gaps in there, so that tells me that you're not quite getting that concept. It's still very preliminary for me to fully comment on it. It needs a lot of work. It obviously looks like it's floating. I don't see a full concept here yet in terms of composition. And there's just a lot more detail that would be needed in the face in terms of light and shadow. And then also really work on your curves. A lot of the elements look like you just click, 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 release instead of actually clicking and dragging that curve. So yeah, just kind of keep, you know, fine tuning your pen tool skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great composition. All right, Jules.
So here you've really done the light and shadow exceptionally well. I think, you know, it's going to translate well as you put it into other colors, because there's really good in terms of, you know, how I could just really see, you know, the light hitting the face in that particular manner. I like that you know, made the shirt, you know, curved down. So, but it still feels just a little bit like it's floating. So I'm just wondering if there's any other elements that you think could enhance it. I know you don't, maybe you just wanted the head, but just something to consider there. Peter, what do you want to add?
The thing about it is it's got a distinctive style and it's very crafted. All the shapes feel very intentional, so that carries it a lot of the weight of the concept.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's great. I mean, you could add some elements to the background if you want. I mean, you've given a good dimensional description of why he's your hero. So there's a lot of stuff
I
you
like
could
that
put
it
in.
doesn't end in a straight line. At least it's a unique shape.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe some text or something could sit in the
Yeah.
counter space.
Yeah, think about a shirt. Like, how do you want it to look?
Okay.
But good job. Yeah. All right, this is
Antoinette. All right. So as you're sketching, you know, it's good that you've got the basic outline, but you want to now go on top of the sketch. Either, if it helps, you can do it in a different colored pencil, or you can either put another piece of tracing paper on top and really map out where the light and shadow are. And then you can go ahead and place that as a template in Illustrator. So, you know, it's just very foundational, but yeah.
so this is your mother. And yeah, so and also concept, like how is this going to frame up on a shirt? You're not doing a poster, so you want to think about how the bottom ends without just cropping it, and maybe leave out some of the details of the clothing so that you can focus more on the face. All right, let's see, Daniel.
No.
This is son Luca.
So the eyes are done well, and some of the shadow in the face, light and shadow on the face is done well. But then as I start to, kind of expand out from there, I start to lose that well-defined shapes, and things start to look a little too jaggedy. So like the darkness in the hair, they just don't seem as organic flowing as they should be. I don't know if it's the template that I'm also seeing in the background, that maybe the template needs to be turned off. Yeah, I would just go in and, just nice curves, just smooth out some of that stuff that feels very jaggedy. I think you're also trying to do path fitting instead of just layering objects on top of each other. And that's why we're seeing some gaps in some places.
You could do an interesting composition with, sort of framing his head rather than have to articulate the hands and the parts of the legs. Right now, the way this is cropped is kind of awkward. So if you just focus in on the face, maybe some containing shape and something, fun in there. Right now, it's just like translating a photo into Illustrator.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, Delanor.
So this is live trace, and this is done incorrectly. So go back to the drawing board. Remember, it's not a floating head. How do you want to develop your concept of Michael Jordan? Show us light and shadow. I can't really comment on this any more than that because it was just done incorrectly. So.
Yeah, re-watch the videos about the assignment and how to do it, and take another shot. So, all right. Armando.
So that's a classic photo. I'm not sure that this photo is going to translate well into a t-shirt design. So think about the composition and, what would work best. What are the places that he gave his famous speeches, and how did all of that come into play? Maybe some of that can, be incorporated in the background or what have you. But just think more about the composition before you venture into actually putting all that vector work in.
Yes, and because you're using such a famous photo, the burden is on you to create your own unique take on this. If you remember the famous Shepard Fairey portrait of Obama, he was sued because he basically copied the creative intent of the photo, and was set to lose the case when they dropped the whole case. But so what are you going to do that makes it different, that makes it unique, and makes it your own? And given that you're doing this based on the current events, there are so many current events imagery that you could maybe add into this to sort of create something unique and interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Nicholas. This is Nicholas's work. So this is Jacob Kurtzberg, also known as Jack Kirby, Marvel Comics. Wait, I gotta read that. So I'm not really sure what the concept is. So it looks like,
is he trying an artistic approach to the light and shadow? Because it almost looks like paint splatter on his face.
Yeah.
So is this a film reel?
I don't know. To me, it looked like an old dial phone.
Yeah.
That's why I was looking for a description of that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that shape means, but it's so dominant in the image, like these big white circles. The face is interesting. You're off to a decent start, but that's so distracting and doesn't have meaning as far as I can tell.
I think too, like, where you have the highlights on the left side of the face over the shadow, that possibly like you should just put those in one of your gray tones. rather than outlining him in white. It doesn't really feel natural. The
Yeah.
eyebrows feel a little unnatural too. And they have a different style than anything else that you've put on this composition.
Yeah, maybe a little simpler. And it looks like you might have too many grays, but this looks like 3 grays up here. 1, 2, 3. So this should be white. It's almost like you've got a decent line drawing, and then you haven't figured out how to add the grayscale part to it, and you've got to like fill that in.
And then just the hand kind of floating just feels a little awkward. So,
Yeah.
so maybe you should crop it a little bit further down, so that the hand, you don't have like a floating head hand.
He didn't describe this, but I'm guessing that these are more or less placeholders for characters that he created. So
Okay.
that would be super challenging, but really interesting if you could pull that off.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And then this is Elspeth.
So I think that your vector skills are good. You've done a good job with the pen tool. You've gone with a very comic book-like feel with everything being outlined in black. And I think maybe you could venture a little bit outside of that and come in and add more light and shadow without it being outlined. And, particularly on the skin, the glasses, goggles, those type of things. Even in the flowers, you could come in and add some of the mid-tone grays. And just experiment with it. I think you might find it really interesting, and then add a little bit more white in the eyes, like a little dot of white. But I think it's good, and your pen tool skills are good. So you've definitely, competently displayed that. Just add some more light and shadow, and you don't have to outline it.
Yeah. Yeah, almost like if you were working in regular media, that you would do this pen drawing, and then you would come in with some washes, a brush, like wash in some gray, a light gray around the eyes and under the lip and things like that, maybe on the shadow, maybe create a light gray part of the banner down here and use a dark
The
gray.
banner has a lot of negative space in it.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if she chose more of like a military like font, army like font, like the spray painted type of,
Yeah.
stencil look, and then space the letters out a little bit more. If that, would, fit a little bit better, or maybe even like some, military symbolism on either side of mom.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is kind of a very emotional story. I appreciate you sharing all that. It's a lot.
I really like too how this radiating star in the background is custom made, and it like fits the composition.
Yes, right.
It doesn't feel like some geometric shape that was just, haphazardly placed in the background.
Yeah, they're drawn. Yeah, it's really good. Good work. All right.
This is some for other inspiration, but that's
Oh, okay. So, Angela, this is your mom.
I like these additional elements of the like dream catchers in the bottom. I think we have too much of the mid-tone grays and not enough contrast with black. So I would come back into the composition and see if you could do that. So it doesn't, right now, if it's just too mid-tone, it reads kind of muddy. So yeah, just, determining what could be maybe black, like maybe her hair could be more black. And then think about like where the hair is extending out of the frame. It doesn't always feel as natural. So you may need to go in with like your smooth tool and just smooth out some of these lines. So it looks like you traced everything precisely. And now you can come back and you can analyze, does that really work?
This shape right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the value difference is too close. Like, so the light gray and the dark gray are too close in value. Your dark gray maybe could get a little darker, and the light gray maybe even a little lighter, but it's pretty good. But that would give you more shape and dimension. It would feel better, I think, if you did that. And this shape too, like we were talking about with that other one, like you could make this a little more organic if you maybe blunt the points or something. It just feels so geometric compared to everything else. But yeah, I like the idea of the dream catchers. All right, next up, Jimmy. Your father?
So, so this is interesting, but I'm reading this as 3 separate elements instead of one cohesive whole. So I'm seeing a semi, I'm seeing a face, and then I'm seeing the title Father of the Year. And so you just kind of need to work on your visual hierarchy so that my eye naturally flows through the composition. It knows where to go first and then gracefully goes to the next part. So like, for example, maybe the semi could be placed behind the man. Maybe we don't need the word trucking, you know, that's kind of, you know, obvious, right? And then maybe just a little bit more stylization to Father of the Year, and possibly, you know, father could be large, of the could be small, and then year could be large again. So just more visual hierarchy as you're working through the elements. Now, in terms of the actual face and the detail, it definitely needs more detail. The shapes need to be a little bit cleaner. And same thing here. Even when you're rendering different skin tones, you know, in the family of all the skin tones that we have from light to dark, even when you're dealing with dark people, it doesn't mean that you have to only use dark shades. That can be conveyed even through, you know, lighter shades. So right now, everything's on the very dark side. And so that's not working quite as effectively. What do you
So,
want to add here?
yeah, the value here, this is the opposite. These are both too dark. So your light gray could be lighter, and that would help you. And then you can use your dark gray as, you know, texture in the beard and in the hair, and that might help you too. But I agree, I would take the word trucking out because it's really about Father of the Year. It's not the trucking, it's represented by the truck itself, and that should be sufficient. So right now it's like an eye chart, like everything is 1, 2, 3 in a row. You want it one cohesive illustration. All right.
There might have been a couple students who submitted after the video. Can you scroll down to make sure? Yeah, this one
Yes.
was submitted. Okay, after.
Huh. Olivia Olson. If my firstborn was a girl, we're gonna name her. It would be Olivia. Olivia. But anyway, lovely.
This is great. I think you've done an excellent job showing highlight and shadow. And I really like the way that you frame the bottom with these flowers so it doesn't feel like it's floating. It feels like we was talking about it, just a cohesive composition. It seems very intentional that you only added shadow to the underside of the flowers, which is fine. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, this is really good work. I have, this is just almost like nitpicking a little bit. I would select these strokes in the flowers and change the profile so they're tapered, and it would feel more like the rest of the illustration,
yeah,
because right now
yeah,
they kind of jump out as being a little different. And then I'd call it a day because this is really good work.
yes. Excellent.
Look at the teeth are rendered so well. So this is like the thing, like it's just a little tapered line, and then there isn't like a full articulation of each tooth. So her smile looks
See that as
charming
an
and
example for what we were talking about.
yeah, I know, that's nice.
I think there might have been one more after her, sorry.
Yes. All right. So John doing Walt Disney. Let me zoom out. Oops.
So yeah, I think I'm not seeing white. I'm seeing
3 grays.
3 grays. So where you have
1,
the
2.
lightest gray, I think you should go back and translate that into white. And think too how the shape is ending. And you know, the name Disney is very large. So again, what is your visual hierarchy? So think about how all of those elements are going to be incorporated into each other. What if you had the D super large and you had his face coming out and protruding over part of it, you know? Because a lot of times, you know, when you look at, you know, responsive design, sorry, I teach in mobile. Hopefully that makes some sense, you know, but you know how logos will change depending on the size of the desktop screen or the mobile device that they're on. Disney obviously, you know, at the smallest size will drop down to just the D. So I think that might be sufficient in itself. It might be worth exploring.
You're
And then when
saying
you look
put
at
the
like
D
Disney,
over him?
everything, yeah, really large and have him come out over the D, maybe. At least part of it. I don't know. It's just an idea.
Yeah.
But when you look at Disney, the typography, it all has these smooth, rounded, you know, corners and stuff. And then this star at the top has, you know, it's everything's terminating in sharp points from, you know, the star itself to like where it began. It's not cohesive. You want to like match the look.
Yeah, I did a star demo earlier. But yeah, so this star tool, you just drag it out. Oops, I still have it set from before. So if you just click once, it gives you these options, and you can create a different type of star. It could be 4, it could be 6 points, you know, and you can make a custom star. Maybe it's like 11 points, you know. You could create all kinds of cool stars. They don't have to be just sort of the out of the box star, especially for Disney.
All right, that's it for my class.
All right, I'm going to jump in now.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome. All right. Starting with Brittany. Brittany, there's no description here, so I don't know kind of what you're going for here. There's the flag of the United States, what looks like a cross. There's a face. So this composition needs to pull together a little more. I would say maybe his head could go to the right of the cross a bit, so it's not like popping out of the top of his head. And then finish it off so that it all sort of sits as a one cohesive free-floating design instead of being cropped like this. This face looks very auto-traced. It doesn't look like you've intentionally sort of drawn in the shapes. And you've got the right number of grays, it looks like, but you're missing detail on the lips. And all these little jagged edges need to be smoothed out. The hair, you know, it's just sort of like random shapes generated by like artifacts from the photo. So I want you to make sure that you're creating, see, all this rough edge should be just one smooth line. You can use a smooth tool, probably is the fastest way to get that done. And then create one cohesive composition. It looks like there's little dots. I want to rub my screen with Windex every time I see these little dots. It looks like dirt. All right, Adriana. So this is highly stylized work. It's kind of interesting. I see it's obviously in progress. So as you go forward with this, think about your composition, how it crops on the edges and the bottom, and how you're going to make this into your own unique kind of shape. It looks like you're venturing into too many grays right now. It's hard to tell, but maybe. And more detail, obviously. But interesting start. What do you think, Sabrina?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's classic, but yeah, just composition too. How's it going to be framed? And
Right. Uh, all right. Wow. All right, Jasmine, this is your mom. The face, your mom looks like she's, a kid. I, charming, charming smile, great pose, terrific facial features, nice hair. Um, let's see. Uh, the African themed apparel, I guess that's what this headdress is. But right now, it's not really reading as shape and dimension. It feels like just a jumble of shapes, especially compared to the great work on the face. So I'm sure this is something super wonderful and complex. I would encourage you to sort of look at it in terms of light and shadow and how it shows up, uh, and make that work. These shapes for the flowers down here are fun, but they feel a little geometric and there's some rough edges, just a little cleanup. These big chunky things feel a little out of place. What do you think, Sabrina?
I really like the face. Face is done really well. So yeah, just want that kind of same style cohesively. Really well done on the face. So, but I agree with all the flowers and stuff, and um, the you know I wonder if, sometimes there's contextual alternatives in a typeface. I'm wondering if there's an alternative O, because it doesn't, it looks like it's script and it should connect, but it doesn't. So just see if they're, go into the type menu and then go to glyphs, and then you can see like all the characters that are available in that typeface. And if there's an alternative O, you may want to use that instead.
Yeah. Or you could do it lowercase, like, I don't know, interesting font. Wonder what it looks like. Great
I
start,
like the
though.
font. It just because of that like connecting line, it just
Yeah, it's like, where's it going? And then this one should come into the, anyway, great job. All right. Next up, Brittany. All right, Brittany. Same Brittany. All right. So Brittany, now here we get the description. So there he is. This photo is stretched, but your work isn't. Um, so you've got to work on sort of the technical side of using Illustrator in this case, uh, and how to create the shapes that you want to represent him. Um, Certainly the guide using Photoshop as sort of a guide for light and shadow is a good starting point, but at some point you've got to pen tool out the shapes that you want instead of just relying on the auto trace feature to try to interpret it, or something in Photoshop. So if you want some individual help with that, please reach out and we'll provide it. All right, Jake, I could say almost the exact same thing I just said. So you've established light and shadow, and then you want to pen tool out the shapes that make up the face. One good way to work, if you're going to use this light gray as the base color, is to create a big, large shape of that gray and then work on top of it with the darks and the whites. And you could do that using the pen tool. Right now, this feels very much like just auto traced, and there's no concept to the composition. It's just a floating head. And if you look at the assignment, not only did we say floating head several times during the lecture, not to do that, it also says in the assignment, don't do just a floating head. So think about what you're going to add to that. Plan to do more shoulder check necklace. I don't know if that helps your concept. Maybe there's a containing shape. Maybe there's some words. If you look at some of your other fellow students' work, you might get some ideas, inspiration. All right, Catherine. So, Law and Order SVU. Okay, yeah, I know who this is. Yeah, that looks like her. feel like her forehead's a little small, like it needs to be bigger. Her jawline is big. And I know she has a really strong jawline, but it's pretty good. Composition wise, you don't want to crop side and bottom. I would like figure out a more organic way to sort of finish this off. You've given her a halo. You could add some highlight to the halo to give it a little more shape and dimension. I don't know, what do you think, Sabrina?
I'm trying to understand. I don't know much about this character as to why she would add the halo and the female symbol. The female symbol seems very large. It's competing for attention a little bit. And
There's a bit of irony there.
so maybe scale it down. I'm trying to understand. I don't
Right.
watch a lot of TV, so when people choose, television heroes, I'm always like, oh, I don't know.
She's putting a halo over it. For many women and children. She's been an inspiration, seems like an angel.
Okay.
There's a lot of admiration going here, which is a classic for a hero portrait. So a couple things. So finish the composition in a more interesting way at the bottom. The symbol, because it's so perfect and geometric, it really jumps out. It's stark white. It contrasts with everything else. So you could make it a little smaller for balance. And the hair, with this hair, you've got the dark gray. You might take some of your black and create little depth shadows, just an indication to give some texture to the hair so it's not just flat like that. Like you've started to do it over here a little bit. Some of your shapes could be smoothed out a little bit, but in general, it's working well. You've got light and shadow correct. But just think about how this is going to sit on a t-shirt, what it's going to really look like. You could do a black background, have a white halo. Could be interesting. All right.
It'd be interesting too if she merged the symbols and made the halo and the female symbol one.
Yeah, somehow you could put the cross part coming off of the bottom. Yeah, that's a fascinating idea. Sade, Lauren Hill. This is a wonderful illustration. It has its own really distinctive, unique style. It's using the correct number of grays. You're using line work to create texture and sort of like, give us a sense of more grays.
I like the pattern textures and that they're not perfect lines, that they have varying widths to them.
Yeah. Everything feels very intentional. There's a little bit of this sort of speckly black stuff around the neck. I don't know if those are artifacts from the drawing or something, but it feels like a little out of place. So maybe clean that up a bit. It's just nitpicking a little bit, but I wish she didn't have a microphone. Somehow the microphone seems sort of artificial and everything else feels very natural. But it's okay. You don't have to take it out. The way this ends here, maybe the shape containing shape fills, it goes down into that diamond shape more. But nice work. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
It has a very pen and ink drawing look you've achieved. All right. Brenna.
Wow, look at those flowers.
Wonderful flowers. It's your grandmother. All right, this is wonderful work. Great highlights in the hair. This is how it's done with a little light gray and dark gray on top of black, just to create a little sheen there. The light and shadow on the face works well. All great. These flowers, like we said, are wonderful. The kind of thick outline there it works, and it kind of matches the weight of this containing shape. The only thing I would say, sort of overall composition. All right, I'll let Sabrina say it because you're seeing the same thing I am. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if it would work better with the flowers at the bottom and maybe less
Yes.
oval.
Yes, exactly. And her head could be sort of busting out of the shape too. So put the flowers at the bottom, break up this black void here with nice flowers, and then bring your containing shape down so that there isn't a large gap up at the top, and she fills it out more. And then you'll have a winning composition.
Well done, though.
Very well done. Yeah. All right, Chase, another Kobe. All right, Chase, right now it looks like maybe you're using Photoshop. You've got way too many grays because you're using gradients, and it looks like a sponge brush. You got to review the criteria for the assignment and make sure that you know what you're doing for this work. The composition is more like a poster than it is a t-shirt. You'd want to have it sort of self-contained in some way. This type, the spacing of this type, like spaced out, like I said, it's almost like you're using it like a poster. So I would reconsider the overall composition, what's in this and what isn't, and where does it all go. The background is a lot of, it's just kind of like a lot of mess right now. It doesn't really help the concept. So this is sort of more or less a starting point, but you've got to get to 2 grays plus black and white, no gradients, no changing opacity, everything solid, and you'll get there. You got any thoughts, Sabrina?
No, it's just too foundational to really
Yeah.
talk about it. The flush right text isn't reading quite as fluidly. So consider how that might look too once you put it all together.
Yeah. And keep on beating everyone. Not a great message. I don't know. All right, Chelsea, Princess Diana. It looks like you've created a pencil drawing based on a photo. Much more than this. You need to do a lot more to get there. Creating vector shapes. Hopefully, looking at other people's work, you can see where you need to go with this. You need to have some sort of idea or composition. It kind of looks like an official photo, and you need to go beyond that. Abigail, work in progress. I see you have more to do, but it looks like you're working Illustrator pretty well here. Interesting kind of attitude going there. I'm just assuming the pink is so that you could see what you're doing. Eyebrows are great. Glasses are great. Yeah, you're working on it. I'd like to see where this ends up going. It looks like a great start. All right, Deja, Angie Thomas, American writer. So you've added a book. You're using a brush here what these brushes will do is they'll create multiple grays, a whole range of grays to get the brush effect. And that creates complexity that you have to then simplify to meet the requirements for the assignment. So be aware of that. You're going to have to expand those and simplify it down to light gray, dark gray, black and white. The composition, I understand the book, the microphone is sort of just jumping out at you. It's this big geometric thing. It's way too big, I feel like. And yeah, so maybe smaller microphone, something. The book is very geometric. You got to sort of pull it together in terms of visual style. You got thoughts, Sabrina?
Yeah, the 3 elements don't feel as incorporated as they could be. So, you know, think about like maybe how her hair could just flow into the spine of the book or something like that.
Yeah. Finish this off here. It's almost like you want to do a thumbnail and just sort of figure out how everything lays out, how the elements work together. Logan, Uncle Bob. The K is silent. Bob. All right. All right. So, good composition. You're off to a good start. You need to refine some of these shapes, add some detail. I always feel like sunglasses are a cop-out. You don't see the eyes, but you know, that might be Uncle Bob's look. The flowers, they all feel very like you took the same one and just turned it a little bit, maybe. A little refinement on some of these shapes. I feel like he should have more of a defined upper lip. This is kind of like a hot mess over here on the right side of the mouth. This black shadow doesn't feel natural. This shape could be simplified a lot. This is a strand of hair. Maybe the hair has a little bit of texture in it as well. All right, one more section. And is this it? Yeah. All right. Klaus, John Bellion. Great composition, nicely done. I want to see it better. Oops, wrong way. This looks like an illustration that you're copying from somebody else's illustration.
Hopefully it's your own.
Is that your own? Yeah. Yeah, I understand you're adding some elements here, but you know, if this is somebody else's illustration, you really got to go beyond that. Kenneth has joined us. Kenneth, I'm glad you made it. We're closing in on this. All right, so just to wrap up with Klaus, good composition. Make sure you make this your own. This is like sort of truncated there, more fluid shapes, and you should be good. All right. So Kenneth, did you submit work? And perhaps we already looked at it.
At this point, probably just be best to finish this section.
Yeah, right. Let's do that. All right. So, all right, Faith, this is your father. So you're off to a good start. Oops. I see the photo reference. So a couple things. So if you really looked at, I know his eyes are deep in shadow, but if you really look at that, and you can take this into Photoshop and sort of brighten it up, like so you can see what's going on with his eyes. The eyes typically aren't like a completed circle within the eyelids, because that's not really natural. So his eye, the circle would be bigger and it's sort of like almost cropped in by the eye. That would help it a lot. I would just take this into Photoshop, brighten it up more than you normally would, but just so you can see his eyes and get the detail on his eyes better. On the mustache, you could take your light gray and add a little bit of texture there to pick up the highlights on that. If you see his face, there's yeah, it's sort of, you got to sort of flow your shadows and highlights into each other. The nostrils are defined a little more with like either a black or the dark gray, so that will give you the nose. Noses are tricky, but they're defined by light and shadow. So there's a shadow on the right side of the nose. There's a bit of highlight, which you've already captured there. The nostrils would be darker. Ears are tough. So just sort of keep looking at your photo and refining this, adding detail. Now, overall composition-wise, it's a bit boring. You could maybe, you know, you can take this public market sign into Photoshop and make it bitmap art, and then sort of copy it over, like pen tool it or trace it over, and maybe create a background element out of that. Could be fun. But you've got a freestanding composition so far, but it just needs a little more fun to it. All right, Chantel, your work in progress. Again, what's the overall idea? Is there a containing shape? Are there words? What's going to go in here? So far, so good. Keep going. All right, Jennifer. So this looks like you took a piece of clip art of a car, of a motorcycle, and an auto traced photo of him and a boat and put it together. So I want you to create your own unique artwork with this. So all these shapes need to be very intentional. And if you bring in clip art, which I don't recommend, then you're sort of dictating the style of things based on that. So it would have to be sort of smooth and matching in some way. Her king is a pretty severely arced, like maybe it could be arced less and be a little more legible. But all these shapes got to get cleaned up and made intentional. All right, Crystal, Bill Nye the Science Guy, excellent work, looks terrific. Your grays have a tint to them. They should be just take the saturation and brightness down so that you're not picking up the green in there. But I like this one. You have any thoughts on this one,
No,
Sabrina?
I would concur. I really like the way the bow tie comes out of it. I'm wondering, with the lightning bolt, the one side just seems to terminate like unevenly.
Yeah, like I almost visually, it's supposed to go across, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
It's like a little off.
even just the skinnier point that extends further. I would just, yeah, it just doesn't seem to have that, geometry to it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe check that out. See if you can.
And then, yeah, if you can rotate it just slightly, I think it, so it's past the S on science rules. I think that would be better. Just the light bulb.
Oh, right. Yeah, so it's a little, yeah. Ears are really well done. Ears are tough. All right. Shelby, you're doing your mom. You've got a lot of work to do. So as you work on this, consider like making one containing shape with the medium gray, and then add highlights and shadows to that on top of it on a new layer. Also, what is your overall idea here? Because right now you're just sort of like copying a photo into Illustrator. I don't want you to just do that. So you still have a long way to go. True. If you get stuck, let me know. Nikki, all right, you're doing Ellen DeGeneres. So this looks like sort of an official photo of her, and you're just copying it into Illustrator. That is not the assignment. You need to make a composition out of this that's kind of unique and special, that says something about your hero, that says something about you and your work. So I don't want you just to translate it. Now, as far as translating it goes, seems like you're doing a decent job so far, but just keep in mind, you just don't want to copy an official photo into Illustrator. All right, I love this charming face, well done. Maybe could have some more detail and cleanup in some of the shapes, but great. But again, the composition is just a straight up photo. Maybe do something with a shape around it or something else. So, Yamild, you're doing Dr. Seuss. Great composition, like great idea for this, fun. The fact that it's like a poster is going to be problematic for your shirt. So how would you finish this? Now, I know in Dr. Seuss, you've like replicated his style flawlessly here. I hope this is your own work. You might create like a scroll of paper or some kind of containing shape that's in a Dr. Seuss style for the whole thing. I think it looks like his coat is being yanked off to the side here. I would just crop him in and ditch some of the coat and the wrinkles and all that. You don't need all that. Close in on his face and then maybe create some sort of fun containing shape, like these truffula branch things, you know, you could do a whole shape of that around the whole thing, maybe. Yeah, she likes the Cat in the Hat.
Oh, all the places you will go.
Yes. All right, Elizabeth, this is your husband. You've deliberately created a frame, which is okay. It's very geometric. The shapes in here feel all jagged and random. I want you to be very intentional with what you create for shapes and how you lay this out. Even the frame could maybe have use some gray in it to sort of create a little more shape and dimension to the frame. I'm not a fan of the frame, but could work. It seems like a void here, like something blocking it. Does your eye go there, Sabrina?
Yep.
It's sort of like a white missing area. There's this photo. All right, well, it's a good start, but make it your own. Make all these shapes intentional. All right, now, Kenneth, we got to find you. Did you submit work? I don't see the chat window. Hold on.
There's nothing in the chat window.
Kenneth, if you want us to look at your work live, let me know and we'll find it. I don't know which section you're in. I don't remember his name, but
Last name ends in a C. Chard, something like that. Okay, he's not in my section, so he would be in yours.
all right. I don't know if Kenneth is engaged with us or not. Last chance, Kenneth. He logged on by accident, wandered in from some other class.
All right, well, it's 1 o'clock. I guess we're done.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. It's a long critique.
But they did good.
Yes, good work. All right.